occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places. Although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. Kindly repeat. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord, Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places. Although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing, nor a bed on which to lie. Thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The first and foremost duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord, Hari. While traveling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. There is no need to depend on social formalities or occupation or dress. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. Thus, sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Madgavirapi Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampaya Pitwa Hrashyayus Tatpriyajanaha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concludes his 10th canto commentary with a very beautiful poem in which he says that, my dear Lord Gopal, only if you accept my words will they become like your cows and thus provide sweet milk to give pleasure to all of your pure devotees. Here in this verse, speaking of cows, we have the word gam. Gam here is translated as earth. Certainly it means earth. But actually gam means a cow, literally. The earth is considered to be a cow. Why is the earth considered to be a cow? Huh?
She's a mother.
Very good. Yesterday or the day before we had Mother's Day, correct? So why do we value our mothers? Because Mother gives us everything we need. Everything comes from Mother. When we're tiny baby, that's all we know is Mother. So this is why Krishna says in chapter 9, text 17, Mata Dhata Pitamaha. I am of all these living entities, of all these worlds, I am the father and the mother. So Gam, The earth is the supplier of all the needs. She's also called Prithivi. She's also called Dharati. Why is the earth called Dharati?
She holds.
Yeah, Tri dhatu. In Sanskrit we have this word Tri, which means to bear something, just like Giridhara, Giridhari. He's bearing the mountain on the pinky of his left hand. And someone who can bear something can be called Dharata, or feminine Dharati. So the earth bears everything. Whatever we do to it, whatever we put upon it, the earth just bears it. That's why we're instructed to become more humble than a blade of grass. What's lower than the grass? Earth. Dharati. So this is an attitude, we were discussing this recently in Alachua, when someone is conscientious and follows the injunctions of the Smriti Shastras very strictly, then upon rising first thing in the morning, he'll say, what, do you know this one? He'll say, what is it? Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Parasparshakshamasvame. Please excuse me, consort of the Lord, Vishnu, because I'm putting my foot upon you. So, Gam, cow of plenty, Kamadukha. This is the earth is compared here. And so Vidura is traveling here, Pariyatam. Pari means to go around, pari, all over. And atam means traveling. That's what he's doing, traversing, as Prabhupada says. And what keeps him busy? How does he stay occupied? Medhya vivikta vrittihi. Vritti means something which turns in Sanskrit, vrit. Just like vartate means to turn around or to happen. How things turn out. That's vartate. And vritti means your occupation by extension, your activity, your function. So vivikta vritti, medhya vivikta vritti. We can say a few things about the words here. We've already described cow. Medhya. Medhya is something, med means to offer a sacrifice. Therefore, medhya means something which is fit for offering as a sacrifice. We hear about this. Just like if something is not, if someone has eaten something already, then you don't offer that to the deity. It has to be medhya. Medhya means ritually pure, undefiled, free from impurities, clean, fresh also. You don't offer spoiled milk to the deities. You offer fresh milk. You don't offer limp vegetables to the deities. You offer fresh vegetables to the deities. So this is medhya. And vivikta means separated, isolated, apart, segregated, kept somehow distinct. This is vivikta. We'll explain more in a moment. And vritti means, of course, your function, your activity, turning, the course of life, we can say activities. We have two terms very common regarding vritti. There are two kinds of vritti you can have. What are they? Pravritti, nivritti. Pravritti means you get involved. You play the game. You do what life is all about in a worldly sense. And nivritti means you back off from that. You try to give it up. These are the two options in human life. They can be roughly equated with householder ashram, pravritti marg, and the renunciate ashrams. All the other three are renunciates. That's nivritti marg. But in general, devotional services by its very nature, nivritti. Nivritta tarashaya rupa giyamanat bhavoshadat shrotramanobhiramat ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat. Viman, what is it? Virajyete vinav pushuknat. So this is vritti. Your function in life, your activities. And even Patanjali says, yogash chitta vritti nirodha, to Yoga means to somehow still the mind from turning. We turn over things in our minds, isn't it? That's called chitta vritti. And it's just going on like just 24/7, like a television set or a radio, just all this nonsense we hear in our minds. So yoga means somehow or other to pacify all that or turn it off, to stop it. So this is vritti, how we function in the world, the cycle. And what else? Some other significant words here. Avadhuta. Avadhuta literally means, here Prabhupada translates it as without dressing of the hair, etc. That means unadorned. No need, especially for brahmacharis, no need whatsoever for jewelry. There's only one kind of jewelry that brahmacharis wear. What is that? The tulasi kantimala, which means I am Krishna's dog. Dog tag, Prabhupada said. That's all that's required. No need for elaborate hairstyles, and sometimes we see even sannyasis there putting sandal oil in their hair and just nice expensive rings, and not necessary. Sufficient adornment in this Kali Yuga is Vaishnava Tilak and Tulasi Kantimala. So, this is, what are we on now? The word is here used. Avadhuta, yes. So avadhuta means unadorned, you can say. It can also mean dhuta. What does dhuta mean? Dhona, yes. Yes, unwashed. Because avadhuta, he's so clean, he's so pure, he doesn't even have to undergo these rituals that we all undergo. Here it's being stated that Vidura was wandering from holy place to holy place, taking baths in all those places. But a really advanced person who is Paramahamsa, beyond all this, he's shaken everything off. This is another meaning of avadhuta, to have shaken off everything. Because he's not necessary for him. He doesn't require a reformation like the rest of us. He's already fully reformed, or he's nitya siddha to begin with. Anyway, avadhuta, this is avadhuta. Most clean, we can say it means. And so that's, we'll go to some commentary. Sridhar Swami says, Kimcha gam paryatan vratani chere acharat. Chere means he did, he performed. Acharat. Acharati. Achara. Sadachara. Acharya. They all come from the same root. Char, which means to go, how to carry on. So this is how he carried on. How did he carry on while he was wandering the earth? Vratani chere. He performed vratas. What kind of vratas? What does a vrata mean? A vow. What kind of vows do we take in Krishna consciousness? No, I'm not going to have illicit sex. No, I'm not going to eat meat, fish, or eggs. No, my dear mind, I don't want to speculate like you and gamble my life away or my money away. So much pain is caused by gambling. People don't really dilate on this so much. We were driving yesterday from Alachua, Florida to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was just noting that all the billboards, aside from those that advertise live baby gators, virtually all of the billboards were advertising illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, or gambling. But gambling is a little less. But gambling is not less important, because Prabhupada had a very wide definition of gambling, that to include speculation of any sort, guesswork, even sporting activities, Prabhupada included as gambling. If you think about it, you're gambling with death. There was one boy whose mother came to me distraught. He can't give up his video games. What am I to do? He's 19 now. He's not a kid anymore. But he's addicted to this. This is gambling, because at any second you can die. And do you want to die in the consciousness of Game of Thrones or something like that? I don't even know what Game of Thrones is, but I've heard of it. It's some kind of video game, right?
That's a
Oh, it's a TV show. Okay, sorry. Anyway, they have so many video games. All right, so anyway, this is gambling, and Prabhupada, even speculative investments, Prabhupada didn't approve of also. He considered that to be gambling. Gambling is anything risky that you don't know. Do we ever find one single instance in all of Srila Prabhupada's books, lectures, conversations, or classes that he says, I think? Or, someone asks him a question. When did Prabhupada have said, let me check that and I'll get back to you? Never. Prabhupada always knew exactly what he was talking about, and he was always 100% certain. That's the nature of someone who is perfect. Because he's only hearing from Shastra and he's only repeating what Shastra says. He doesn't have to think even. Practically, think means he doesn't have to speculate. So, this is Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, where were we? Yeah, performing vows. So gambling is one of the vows we follow. Intoxication, we mentioned already. What kind of suffering does alcohol alone visit upon an entire family? Not only one generation, a few generations it takes to clean a family of the effects of this, alcoholism, addiction. Very, very destructive. Creates all kinds of children with, their children who have parents who were alcoholics or drug addicts. It takes them practically half their life just to kind of get over that. And it's so common now, especially here in America, we're told, I don't know, but reading the news, it would seem that more than half of the country is addicted to fentanyl or other kinds of opiates. This is another billboard we saw. What's in your drugs? Have you seen that one? What's in your drugs? Because black market, you don't know what you're getting. So there may be, rat poison, embalming fluid, anything they can put in. Pesticides, chalk, whatever it is. And that's going into your system. So anyway, that's another gambling. Intoxication is also gambling. Meat eating, fish, eggs, and now, we don't really know what's in anything because people lie, even in America. It used to be that only Indians, only in India you were unsafe. If somebody tells you it's pure, then, you didn't really believe it because one devotee was telling me recently, just the price of the milk alone to produce as much ghee as you buy for 1,400 rupees in India, a liter of ghee. Just the price of that milk alone is more than the cost of the ghee. So that means somebody's cheating somewhere. It's not possible otherwise. So anyway, cheating propensity is very strong there. But even now America, since America is becoming a third world country, all the ethical norms of the South Asia have been, established well here as well, so you don't really know what just because a label says something. There are all kinds of fake news also. This is another thing, deep fakes. So, yeah, and meat eating, illicit sex. Where do we begin? It's stated in our shastras. It's stated you cannot even count the number of difficulties and sufferings that visit upon us when we indulge too much in illicit connections with the opposite sex. And nowadays it doesn't even have to be the opposite sex anymore. Anything, anyone. What's the next step after homosex? Then, let's check out the animal world, right? Where does it stop? Krishna says when we make the determination for sense gratification, we just spiral down that vortex, and where do we end up? Hell. Y'all going to hell. This is the deep south, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. Anyway, there's truth in it. But these are the vows that we follow, and it's significant that even sometimes we use the word is used avadhuta, somebody who's a little bit like, way out in left field. We saw he's in avadhuta. We make fun of him. But this kind of avadhuta generally is not so good at following strictly vows. But here Vidura, although he was like an Avadhuta and dressed like an Avadhuta also, he was very careful to uphold the sadachara, or another word for sadachara, shishtachara, the behavior of a person who's trained perfectly well in following the mandates of the Shastras. That's very important. We'll get to that in a moment. All right, so Sridhar Swami has said like this: his means of subsistence wasn't hybrid. What does that mean? His occupation was pure, unmixed. That's how he interprets medhya. We'll get back to that in a moment. The ground was his bedding. Avadhuta means unrefined body, asamskrita deha. Maybe unwashed body, we can say, because Avadhutas sometimes they don't even bathe. Avadhuta Vesha means he wore, the dress of an Avadhuta. Gori Avadhuta Vesha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also one of his songs he sings. That means he's wearing bark and so on. Valkaladidhari. And therefore he wasn't noticed by his kin. I remember when I joined Krishna consciousness, some of the devotees were preaching to me. It was controversial because I was too young to join ISKCON. I was not far from 18, actually, far below 18. And so the devotees were saying, no, just leave. You shave your head, you put on saffron cloth. No one will even recognize you. So that's Vidura's position here. All right, so Jiva Goswami has given a very interesting, very short, but very, very salient and poignant commentary on this verse. Viviktatvam paravrittibhir amishratvam. The word is used vivikta here. So he says seclusion or viviktatvam means not being mixed with others' occupations. Paravrittibhir amishratvam. This is interesting because, I heard a class actually several years back from one of ISKCON's formerly leading sannyasis. Not so popular anymore, but he's very learned and Harvard educated in Sanskrit and very intelligent, capable person in so many ways. He explained this verse without touching upon Jiva Goswami's commentary, because Jiva Goswami's commentary is perhaps different than his own opinion. But anyway, we can talk about the danger of paravritti. It's also called paradharma. In chapter 15 of the 7th canto, verses 12 through 15, discuss 5 kinds of adharma. 5 kinds of things that are presented as dharma, but they should be rejected as if they were adharma. And one of those is paravritti or paradharma, which is what Jiva Goswami mentions here. So, in saying viviktatvam paravritti bhiramishratvam, he was saying that, as Sridhar Swami explained, his means of means of livelihood or his occupation were not hybrid. That means he was not mixing his business with other people's dharma. He was doing his own dharma and only doing his own dharma. And this is something that Krishna also mentions in Bhagavad Gita because it's important. And why is that relevant to us in 2024 in Atlanta, Georgia? Because there are people who want to do other people's dharmas, or they want to invent their own dharmas. 5 kinds of dharmas. You can in your own time, you can study that sector of the Bhagavatam. 7th canto, chapter 15, right around verse 12. So anyway, this is Jiva Goswami's very short. Maybe if we have time, we can return to it. But for now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Gam prativim, medhya pavitra vivikta vrittantarena mishrita vritti jivika yasyasa. That means, medhya, he says here, means pavitra. Gam, he says, means prithvi, the earth. And vivikta means without being mixed with the duties of someone else. Vritti jivika yasyasa, he just did his own duty. Sadaplutaha pratitirtham snata iti snanena pavitriam lakshyate. He was seen to be purified because he had bathed in all the holy places. Pratitirtham, every one of them. Always bathing in those places. And snananantaram kadachit asprishya sparshe punarapi snatiti sada bhagavan mantradi smaranartham pavitra eva tishtati iti artha. That means that if he touched something impure after bathing, he would go back and take a bath again. Those who are doing deity worship, they know what happens. If you finish your bath, you come out, you put on fresh cloths, Vaishnava tilak, and someone while you're walking to Mangalarti, some nishachara drives by with their mega bass booming and just throw some alcohol on you. What happens? It happens, actually. It does happen here in the United States of America. So then you have to go and you have to take a shower all over again. You can't. It's impure. Vidura was following these things even though he was avatuta, cleansed of all need for such things. Still he was following. For whose benefit was he following? So that we could ignore it? No. So to teach us that even I'm following as a Paramahamsa, and Srila Prabhupada did likewise. Because we need to follow the injunctions of Smriti. And Srila Prabhupada, not Srila Prabhupada, Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita says, if we give this up, then what happens? What do we not get? 3 things. We don't get success, we don't become happy, and we don't go back to Godhead. Nothing you do will be successful without the blessings of the Shastras through following their injunctions. You'll not be happy trying to do something concocted or sinful, because they're kind of the same thing. If you don't do your own duty, you're necessarily either doing someone else's duty or you're doing adharma. Those are the only possibilities. So, yeah, and you don't go back to Godhead because you're not serious. Serious people follow Krishna's instructions. So, in this way he remained pure. Avadhuto, asanskrita deha, same thing. We heard from Sridhar Swami. Avadhuta Vesho Valkaladi Dhari. He's citing Sridhar Swami verbatim here, so we don't need to repeat. All right, let's return to the 7th canto, chapter 15. Vidharma paradharmascha abhasa upamachalaha adharma shakhaha panchema dharmagno adharmavat tyajet. That means there are 5 branches of irreligion, appropriately known as irreligion itself, vidharma. Religious principles for which one is unfit, that is paradharma, somebody else's dharma. Pretentious religion, abhasa. Analogical religion, upadharma. And cheating religion, chaladharma. One who is aware of real religious life must abandon these 5 as irreligious. And in some of the commentaries we find these things are explained. Srila Prabhupada has also explained very nicely in his own. But a pretentious religious system manufactured by someone who willingly neglects the prescribed duty of his order of life is called abhasa, dharma abhasa, a dim reflection or a false similarity. And we see this. All the time we see this. People concoct everything. That is, again, back to gambling, isn't it? To concoct something is another form of gambling. Therefore, Krishna says in chapter 4, text 15, just whatever your predecessors or forefathers did with the understanding that that was dharma, just follow that. You don't need to invent any new wheels, as they say. Don't need to create anything or concoct anything. So that's dharma abhas. If one performs prescribed duties for his particular ashram or varna, then why are they not sufficient to mitigate all material distresses? And in his purport, Prabhupada quotes Varnashrama, Chadavatā verse, etc. Okay, so Sridhar Swami tells us, adharmavat, the word is used in this verse, means it's as good as directly prohibited. And then he explains. Dharma badha means performing actions that obstruct one's swadharma, yet considering those actions to be dharma. It's mode of ignorance. What does Krishna say about this in Bhagavad Gita? Intelligence in the mode of ignorance?
What should not be done should be done, what should be done.
Yeah, adharma. What is adharma they consider to be dharma, and what is dharma they consider to be adharma. Just like you Hare Krishna people, why do you get up at such an ungodly hour? This is a direct example of this point. So, yeah, this is one thing. Doing something that directly obstructs dharma and yet calling it dharma. Nowadays we have, equality. This is a big thing. In fact, people aren't even satisfied with equality anymore, right? Not equal enough means it's not exploitable enough. So they have to get it. Now they're emphasizing equity, right? You've heard this? Diversity, equity, and what's the other one? Inclusion, I think it is, right? So equity means everybody gets the same across the board. Sounds fair on the face of it, doesn't it? But what's the problem with that? Everybody gets exactly the same things in life. What's the problem with it? And then I don't talk, you got to raise your hands. I'm not going to call on the seniors, I'm going to call on the juniors. All right, what's your...
Not everyone has the same blue and karma.
Not everybody has the same karma. You give diamonds to a fool and he'll just, he'll sell it to buy some candy. Right? What can you do? Sometimes you cannot help a person also. You give them all facility and still, we're instructed to do so. We shed gallons of our own blood just to save one other person. But sometimes you just can't help people because their karma is too thick. You can't get through. That's just unfortunate thing. So realistically, one has to assess who is who and what is what. And that is how Prabhupada defines intelligence in Bhagavad Gita. Or as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Shakade Shamman Korite Shakti Dehonata Jata Jata. What does it mean? That, I'm giving respect to everyone, that we agree, no problem. But you don't give exactly the same respect to a dog that you give to your grandfather, is it? Your grandfather, the king, you give a certain degree of respect. And, anybody we respect, but according to their station in life, because we recognize different karmas produce different results. Different people have different adhikars. We're all different. There's nothing wrong with that. And it forces one to be honest if one embraces this in principle. Because then you have to say, okay, well, I'm actually not the supreme person after all, am I? Somebody else is better than me. And I have to practice amani na mana dena towards that person. And that's very hard on the false ego. The last thing the false ego wants to eat is that bitter pill. So, anyway, this is exactly why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us. You have to, as we described in the beginning, you have to consider yourself lower than the grass, like the earth, more tolerant than a tree. The earth is also tolerant. And I always point this out. In Los Angeles, outside of our temple, they have these magnolia trees. You have magnolias on the altar here. So magnolia trees, and every year or every 6 months or so, the municipal truck comes by and they pull out their saws and they just start cutting off branches. Ostensibly, the idea is to avoid a dead branch falling on a motorist, which is probably a good idea in order to avoid civic lawsuits. But I counted 32 scars on one tree. 32 limbs have been sacrificed to the city of Los Angeles by this tree in front of the temple. That's why we say, or somebody comes and, Dilip loves, whatever, or here, Tom loves Jane or whatever, It is nonsense. People will scratch into your skin if you're a tree. Do you think they don't feel pain? I don't know. I don't remember. Anybody remember when you were a tree? You were a tree at one time. most likely, unless you're coming from the heavenly worlds. At least we were Brahma. Every one of us was Brahma at least once. Now look at us. So, more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass, and ready to offer respect to whom it is due. This person has done some austerity. Prabhupada said, there is no opulence manifested in this life that doesn't have a long history of austerity behind it. So here somebody has done something. He's got the result for that thing. Let me show some respect. Why not? Does it really hurt? But it does purify our hearts. And at the same time, if someone wants to respect us, that's a little uncomfortable if you're trying to cultivate this mood. It's very pleasing if you're trying to cultivate the mood of Ishvara Bhava, becoming an Ishvara. That's another matter. But if we're trying to cultivate this humble mood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends, then to have someone give us respect is a little difficult. And this is the idea. Amanina doesn't like to be honored, but manada, he likes to give respect. If we can do these four things, we can make advancement in spiritual life by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, different acharyas have given slightly different interpretations of these 7th canto verses that I'm quoting from. Jiva Goswami says in the verses beginning with Dharmabhata, Pakhanda means anything outside of the Vedas. I want to see a show of hands. Who can tell me, what is the definition of an atheist? Okay, way in the back. Safedwala. Very good. You're all educated. I shouldn't have asked here because I know you're all reading Prabhupada's books and distributing Prabhupada's books. Most people, if you read the dictionary, they go by that definition. That what the dictionary definition is? Atheist? You don't believe in God, basically. But our definition is a little different. You don't follow the Vedas. You don't accept the authority of the Vedas. Because what do we know about God even? That we can believe in Him or not? We have no concept. But Vedic authority is very clear. Do this, don't do that. It's very clear. If someone can surrender to that, then he's a theist. Otherwise, Jiva Goswami here says, he's called Pakhanda, rascal. Dambha also means cheating, he says. All right. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says, Vidharma means to perform acts that destroy dharma. Paradharma means to perform another person's duties. Upadharma means advertising oneself as a follower of dharma while actually rejecting the Vedas. There's one group that I won't name in Vrindavan. They wear some sort of tilak that's a concocted tilak. I'm sure you've seen them if you've been to Vrindavan. Kind of like, sort of like Sri Vaishnav tilak, but just not really. The guy concocted it. He just wanted to invent his own religious movement. And, he just made it up, and he took some things from ISKCON and other things from, Mayavadis and other things from yoga. And so, this is exactly what he's talking about here. Upadharma. It looks like dharma, but it's actually, they reject the Shastra conjunctions, such as Hari Bhakti Vilas, which would say you wear this tilak. Or at least some sampradaya. Sampradaya vihinaye mantraste nishpalamata. You've got to follow some sampradaya, even if you don't want to follow Gaudiya sampradaya. So this is upadharma. Chala dharma, that's even worse. What does chala dharma mean? Cheating. Pure cheating. You have no intention of doing anything or being any. You just like there was one man. He came I think it was in Los Angeles, actually. Not men. There's several women, they came. They dressed like devotees, they acted like devotees, but their real intention was to come and steal. Indian women, bookmark that. They were Indians, or they were, maybe ABCDs, I don't know, but this is chala, pure cheating. So many times people do this, Prabhupada mentions. They put on saffron cloth in a holy place? Because sometimes confused women, they think it's very auspicious to have a child by a holy man. And so they go to a holy place to find one. And rascal men know this, and so they dress up like a holy man just to enjoy. This is chala dharma, so-called dharma. On the face of it, ostensibly it's being presented as dharma, but it's all nonsense. And then, what is the last one he says? He goes on to say, he says that Upadharma also means to those pretenders who actually reject the Vedas. So there's some overlap, it would seem, between Upadharma and Chala Dharma here. But he gives another definition, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, of the Chala Dharma, not just an out-and-out cheater, but a person who explains the scriptures in a different way, Shabda Pit. He breaks up words and does, word juggery, as Prabhupada calls it. For example, there may be an injunction, you should feed not less than 10 Brahmins. But somebody who is doing this Chala Dharma, he'll say, okay, that means you should feed less than 10 Brahmins. He'll find a way to interpret it like this. Or Shabda Prit, a person who takes only the words. As the Christians also say this. He follows the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. This is called Shabda Prit in Sanskrit. For example, if there's an injunction to give a cow in charity, you'll give a dry cow in charity. Or a dying cow in charity. And we have our modern, updated version of the same thing. When people, who goes out and buys a new Mercedes-Benz and donates that to the temple? They give their old car to the temple, and, the reason they changed it in any way is because it's got problems, right? This is Shabda Prit. So anyway, it's understood that, why are these things important? It's understood that we're doing these things, all of us. We're not perfect. We have to, part of being humble, more humble than the blade of grass, ityadi, is to recognize that these things are very relevant in our lives, and we have to introspect. He goes on to say, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Dharma Abhasa refers to concocting demigod worship different than what is recommended in one's ashrams. And what else does he say? It's just something that is imagined. All right, so then these are just a few things we can consider about this. In sum, Vidharma means irreligion, anything that obstructs dharma, but presented as if it were dharma. Paradharma means to do someone else's dharma, or to do a dharma that's taught by somebody other than Krishna. Somebody else's dharma can also mean that, right? Muhammad's dharma, or Buddha's dharma, or somebody other than Krishna. That can also be paradharma. Upadharma means a semblance of dharma that's actually non-Vedic or atheistic. Pretentious dharma, displayed by unauthorized so-called sannyasis. This is all upadharma. Chala dharma, deception, out-and-out deception, or word jugglery, hypocrisy. And abhasa dharma, concocted worship of imaginary gods. They do exist, imaginary gods. Anyone want to name one? Oh, good. No argument from this Vyasasa. Anything else? Okay. What else? What about Ayappa? Anybody? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not been demonstrated to me yet that it has any Shastric origin. Anyway, these are just a few things we can think of. So, I'm going to close now, but simply follow the time-honored conventions practiced and taught by the spiritual master, by the succession of sadhus, and the Vedic literatures, especially the Vedic literatures. That's the center of everything according to which verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita? You must have read it. 22.350, I think. Sorry to use those two words. I may be mistaken about the reference, but I believe it's, if memory serves, I believe it's chapter 22 of the Madhya Lila, text 350, purport. Prabhupada makes it, emphasizes that the Shastra is the real center, because without Shastra, the Guru, he doesn't know what to say. And without Shastra, you can't have a parampara representing it, right? So, something like that. Okay, so, Manusmriti. Sorry?
I thought you were finishing the class. But
Yeah, I am. I'm just kind of, one final point I would like to mention. Manusmriti says, Yenasya pitaro yata, yena yata pitamaha, tena yayat satam margam, tena gacham narishyati. Going the way of the wise and the upright, by which one's forefathers and grandfathers went, one comes to no harm. Otherwise, no guarantees. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Anybody have any questions or any comments?
we have in English the word atheist, which is often equated with the word Gnostic. How did that come about? Because the English meaning of the word atheist should be Anishvaravadi.
Yes.
We have in the Gita, it's right there, one who Jagadahur Anishwaram. Any idea how did that come about? Is that another British Monia Williams mess up, or what's going on?
Possibly, but even Srila Prabhupada uses sometimes, here's the real problem, in my view, that there's a lot lost in translation necessarily because the target language doesn't necessarily have an adequate receptacle to receive the concept expressed in a word from the origin language. For example, we use the word dharma, favorite example. That I counted at least 24 distinct definitions in Srila Prabhupada's books once. And, the problem is for Western minds is that it means all those things all at the same time. and that we just don't have any such word in English to express that. And so Prabhupada has to give 32 distinct definitions of what is dharma. And similarly, we have rasa is a word that can't be translated. And similarly, astikyam and nastikyam, these are words that don't really correspond to theism and atheism, but those are the closest concepts the English-speaking people have. The English-speaking people do not recognize the centrality of Shastra enough that becomes the focal, the pivot around which they define a theist or an atheist. You see? So that's my theory on this, and I can't say I really know, frankly, but it seems to be something like that. The English language is very, very good at expressing geopolitical concepts, technological concepts, psychological concepts also. But it's not so good about expressing, spiritual and metaphysical concepts. But the Indian languages, by turn, they're not so good if you want to talk about nuclear physics. But if you want to talk about, or child abuse, But if you want to talk about subtle spiritual realizations, there is no language better than Sanskrit or any of these derivative languages. That's my opinion. Idam matam mama.
You said that Pravriti Marg roughly corresponds to the Grihastha ashram and Nivritti Marg to the others. The Brahmachari is under the care of a householder guru. You'd like to develop that, where that takes us?
Well, there are many good reasons to have a gurukula led by a householder guru. And even in ISKCON, we've realized some of those reasons. But one reason that I don't hear dilated so much is that traditionally young, very, very young children are sent to the Gurukul, 5 years of age. Anybody here remember when you were in kindergarten? Or has anyone here ever taught kindergarten? Then you may know. When the first day of school in kindergarten, there is a classroom full of 30 crying children, bawling their brains out. And the teacher has to somehow deal with that, because it's very difficult for such young children to be away from, we discussed already, mata. Mata is everything for a child. It's something like, if suddenly God were removed, how would we all feel? It's just, so it's difficult. And, to have, on Mother's Day, we were discussing the 7 mothers. What is that? Janani, Gurupatni cha, Brahmani, Rajapatni cha, ityadi. I forget the verse, but Guru Patni means the
Dhatri Dhenu.
Yeah, Dhatri Dhenu.
Tata Prithvi.
And Prithvi, yes. These are the 7 mothers. But Guru Patni is one of them, because she has to fulfill that role of emotional support in a Gurukula system. As long as the children are small, at least. After a certain point, then it becomes dangerous. And that's why, we find, so many prohibitions of Shastra or denigration in the Shastra of, illicit relations between older students and the Guru's wife. It can become dangerous. And the injunction is that the Guru's wife should stop this maternal, physical care, especially at a certain point, presumably around her before puberty. So. Yeah, but she fulfills an important role in providing a buffer between the warm, salubrious world of maternal care and security and the relatively more cold, impersonal atmosphere of an austere ashram.
What was that about baby gators?
Okay, this is another billboard that you see in Florida. I just took note of these things on the way here. Every few miles you'll see a billboard. Evidently they're selling live baby alligators to people in Florida. I can't imagine what they do with those things. I just don't know.
As a pet.
You have to go to Florida and conduct some interviews. Baby alligators.
You're allowed to also go into places where you can touch them and play with them.
Like a zoo, is it?
Yeah.
So they're not selling them, actually. I mean, I don't know. People can eat anything in this age, right? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with them. Live baby gators. These are the billboards you see all over Florida.
And orange juice.
Okay. Yeah, and don't forget the adult stores. That's another one. I mean, literally every 50 feet there was another billboard. There was this adults, what is it, Central Adult Superstore or something. Big yellow sign. Ayo.
Well, just remember that America is God's gift to the world. God bless America. We have to go and bomb other countries so they can get the gift of the American way of life.
Yeah, well, that's... I think not anymore, because we're in a post-American world now. And now the CCP...
Don't tell the guys on Capitol Hill that. Yeah. They don't believe it.
Now the Chinese Communist Party sees that they're God's gift to the world. That's why they're expanding into everyone's country. Permission or not? Not required. It's been documented in many places in Europe, in America, North America. South America, it's much easier, but even in these so-called tightly controlled Western societies, they've got their own police stations in order to enforce CCP laws on Chinese expatriates. That's what I call hubris. It just puts America to shame. America did the same thing a generation before. It's often stated that an abused child grows up to be an abuser. And China, if you know Chinese history, China had its century of humiliation under the British and others, in which they were put down, and they were just as China is addicting the Americans to fentanyl now, the British had addicted the Chinese to opium in the 19th century. So then they're just the same playbook, but they're doing it so much worse than the Americans could even think of, because the Americans were too pious. We're talking about reptilian exploitation of human society on a godless scale that we can hardly imagine.
What's that, reptilian?
Yeah, reptilian, cold-blooded.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, this is the new world order. America's, passé. Practically speaking, hopefully, Asha hai ki, that India will take its role under the able leadership of a couple of Rajarshis in charge, that, they will be able to offset this.
Prabhupada wanted America to become Krishna conscious and lead the world.
That's right.
So maybe it's, through book distribution, it's not too late, but it's looking pretty bad. We just need to import a few more Mahotsahas here. And Krishna, Krishna definitely has plans for this place.
We have a Mahotsaha tree in our farms. We'll just pick one or two and.
They have no idea that the Telugu people who are invading America now, they have no idea that Visa Balaji has his own plan, including all of you. Something happening in Atlanta now. We don't know exactly what Krishna has up his sleeve, but we know how Krishna works. He always wants more. Ani or. So anyway, anything can change by Krishna's arrangement. Any of these biggest demons, they can just be knocked out with a little mosquito bite, no problem. Krishna himself has to do nothing. His material energy is entirely sufficient. And even she has to do nothing. Even, these little tiny minions and agents of Maya are powerful enough to knock out the most threatening thing that we can imagine. I always remember in 1977, when ISKCON was under several, serious-looking lawsuits, because they were accusing us as, abducting and brainwashing impressionable young teenagers like myself. And, so there was a court case. Some parents, disgruntled parents, didn't like their children's choices. They pushed this thing, that the idea that somebody had kidnapped my son or daughter and brainwashed them. So the one case actually made it to the Supreme Court of the United States. And in an ISKCON in 1977, when most people were under 30 years of age, that was very threatening. It was very intimidating. And, young, inexperienced devotees like yourselves had to go face, this high court judge, Supreme Court judge, top judge in the whole country, and argue that, we're a bona fide religion, we're not doing what they say they are. Prabhupada told us, just put a folding table in the courtroom, put all my books on top of the table, and enter this as Exhibit A. And whatever they throw at you, you have to know those books, like a lawyer knows the law books. If you do know those books, then you just pick up the book and show them. This is where it's coming from. Case closed. The devotees did that. The devotees were so timid and frightened by this scenario. But the more threatening I want to say the prosecutors became, the more enlivened Srila Prabhupada became, the more enthused he became. Because he saw that they have no chance of winning. That was his faith. We didn't have that faith because we were too young. But Prabhupada saw it very clearly. There's no way these people can win. And so he just saw it as an opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness, which it actually did. And the result is that the Supreme Court judge just threw the case out of court. The devotees also contacted favorable scholars who could understand the situation, and it was explained. In those days, scholars had more integrity than they do nowadays. Nowadays, you can just rent a scholar to say any damn thing you want him to say. So, but in those days, they were more upright. And, the devotees won the case and hands down. It was just thrown out of court. It was not taken seriously. The point being is that we have to just have faith, and we have to read our books, because that would not have been possible if the devotees didn't know where in those books to find the arguments. So that means, Prabhupada, you all know this already, but I'm saying it because it bears repeating always, that Prabhupada criticized that you think that these books are just for selling. You don't realize that they're also for reading. Someone like Vaisheshika, he knows. A very good book distributor, he knows that we have to read these books. And if you do, then nobody can stand. There's no threat that we cannot stand, because everything is there in the Shastra. That's another reason why atheist means you don't accept the Shastra. Shastra yonitvat. What is a better translation into Sanskrit than books are the basis? Or I would say that Srila Prabhupada took that phrase from the Sanskrit of Vyasadeva. This is in the Brahma Sutra. Shastra yonitvat. Everything is, books are the basis. That's what it means. So, as long as we keep these books pure and unmixed, and as long as we read the books, ingest the books, assimilate, apply, and teach the books, and distribute the books, then we have no harm from outside. The only harm, Prabhupada said, is from inside, and this is where you will be attacked, the books. So put them in your heart, put them out into the public, etc. And there's no harm. Brainwashed books are already out. Prabhupada said this in 1970. In regard to that case, the devotees were thinking, what if they shut down, ISKCON, and so many things can happen? And Prabhupada said, no, nothing will happen. The brainwashed books are already out there. 60, how many, millions of them we distributed on Radha Damodar. That's what made Hare Krishna a household name. But, the thing is that pressure has to be kept up, because it just takes a generation of neglect, and then people come and say, what is this Hare Krishna? I never heard of it before. I saw someone in Tijuana like that. Very intelligent man, professional young man, smart guy. Also very interested in yoga, but he never heard of Hare Krishna. How is it possible?
Mexican?
Yeah, in Mexico.
Mexican.
A Mexican citizen in Mexico. Very intelligent man. Very, very educated, bright, very sattvic person. I could just look at him and see he was a devotee in the future. But, the devotees were not there to provide the books for him. We only go to Mexico for dental work. So, we always have to keep this pressure up, and that's why Srila Prabhupada always was pushing on us year after year after year to double it. From 1974 or 73 to 77, every year he wanted it doubled, and every year the devotees did it because they had faith. And now is the time for that. ISKCON itself is attacking itself. What to speak of others? And the atheists on the outside, they're getting so vicious. They're not even honest. You can't expect it. But anyway, we have to put these books out there and prevent anyone from diluting them. Okay, anything else? I'm just kind of rambling now. 9 o'clock, I'm told to stop, and it's 9:10. फिर पूजा करना पड़ेगा अभी तक. Okay, thank you all very much. I'll close Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.